Welcome back to Care to CEO Season 2. Hi, Crystal. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. Oh my God, it's so glad. I'm so happy to see you. Oh my goodness, it's been a while, and
Yes, Happy
you're
New
one
Year.
of Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you. I'm so excited that we're in season 2, and we're starting this thing off strong. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Season 1 covered so much. I'm so excited.
yes, it did. Yes, it did.
I miss our conversations.
I know. I know. So do I.
Absolutely. So this season, we're focusing on scaling service businesses with systems, with strategy, and with soul. We're back. We're hosted with the great Crystal Smith, not only CEO, but former city councilwoman. And for anyone joining us this season, this show is for solo CEOs and health service founders who are ready to step out of the day to day and really finally ready to build a business that runs without them. So today's episode is where the journey begins, because here's the truth that most founders don't really want to hear. You can't really scale what you still operate. So if you're the one that's doing everything, deciding everything, and fixing everything, growth will always have a ceiling. So today, Crystal's going to be walking us through what the CEO shift really looks like, why it's uncomfortable, and why it's the most important move service-based founders can make. And if you've been listening since season 1, Crystal started off quite some time ago and has come so far and has changed so many things throughout her business and has provided so much valuable information so far. So I'm excited to dive into this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, let's kick it off. Let's dive in.
Yes.
So why do you think so many service-based founders struggle to really see themselves as CEOs instead of just the person who keeps everything running?
So I think most service-based founders, such as myself, we were rewarded earlier on in just doing the work. We received gratitude just for doing the work, but not directing it. And so in caregiving and in service industries, proximity equals trust. So the more hands-on you are, the more valuable you are perceived to be, I would say. And I lived this for a long time. I didn't aspire to be a CEO initially. I just became a dependable person, but I am also naturally a dependable person. And over time, that competence became my identity. People identified me as this capable, dependable person. Um, and and at that time in my life, that's a good feeling, because that is who I am. But the CEO shift requires you grieving that version of yourself that was praised for being indispensable. Because the truth is that you're not, you're not indispensable. And the SBA data actually shows that over 70% of service-based founders remain very deeply operational. Um, and even once the business reaches over $1 million in revenue, you're still so heavily involved that you're basically an operator, and identity-based leadership is the number one psychological barrier when it comes to scaling service-based industries. So that's something that we really, as CEOs, need to learn and do the work to walk away out of that operations hat and into the CEO seat.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know just from our previous conversations, you used to be so involved in the day to day, and you kind of talked about some of the struggles of, like you said, kind of grieving that version and being so deeply involved to having to take that step back. And at what point does being deeply involved in the day to day stop being responsible and almost start even limiting the business?
So at some point, your presence has to stop being the bottleneck. Like I noticed that every decision made by anyone in the company required my approval. It required my presence. And it that's what burns you out over time, as well. Harvard Business Review shows organizations slow dramatically when decision making is centralized. and the responsibility is always at the CEO level. And when we really should be designing systems and not constantly involved in intervening in all day-to-day operations. Um, and I think centralized decision making reduces organizational speed, quite dramatically. And founder led operations, sometimes can also, just double in your burnout rate. So I had to really just walk away from, I- and I'm telling all new founders and CEOs that you have to walk away from operating, because there's just so much for us to do as CEOs.
Absolutely. And I had a job, this kind of reminds me of a job I previously had where the CEO was so involved in everyone's day to day
Right? Yes.
startup. So this was her baby, and she just did not know how to separate being the CEO from being like the number one employee in the company.
Absolutely.
And we saw her. I mean, I got to see firsthand her struggle with this, and I was just at the point where I wanted to do my job, and she would get in the way by trying to do my job for me or do this person's job.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like we
That-
need the higher. We can't do the higher picture things. We can't charge of it. We need you to do that, and you need to trust us to do our job. You hired us for a reason.
Right. So some people really like to micromanage, and I think that a lot of it is we don't trust people with our baby. You know what I
Right?
mean? You don't trust. I didn't. I felt like no one can do this like me. No one is going to do this like me. And so I couldn't I couldn't walk away. I was, trying to control and micromanage everything until honestly, I think I had health scares where you could just feel like you are really spread way too thin. And that if I don't make a change right now, I'm going to find myself in the hospital, what I mean, or with something that I can't get rid of. So I had to start changing my mindset. And I did because
Absolutely.
it was necessary. Like I think it was life threatening. And so now uh I love delegating. I think people are almost now when they, and I don't want to make it, to where when staff or my workers see me like, oh God, what's she gonna ask me to do? But I definitely delegate now. You know what I mean? I delegate down to the small things because, honestly, there are other things that, I have to do as far as growing the business. So I
Absolutely.
definitely advise to delegate.
And that's a
Get used
skill
to
to
it.
learn,
It
that's a skill
is.
to learn as well.
Feel comfortable with it. Absolutely. Get comfortable with it.
I think we spoke about that one of the episodes last season about that's a skill that you need to learn as a CEO is how to delegate and then learning to be comfortable with it. And I know you often say if your business can't run without you, you don't own a business, you own a job. So
Yes.
that's kind of exactly what made me think about the previous scenario and the example I just said. But like, can you break down really what that means for the listener?
Yes. So I think a business needs to be transferable, predictable, and have the ability to be audited. Uh, when I was so heavily in the operator seat, doing the work, of the workers, the people that I hire, I was so out of touch with any of the data of the business. So if an investor were to ask me like, what's the revenue? What's what's your profit? I didn't know basic answers to questions that I should know about my business. And that was something that was embarrassing. So I had to absolutely, change that. I had to come to the realization that I built a very high paying job and it's not an asset. Um, and investors, they want to know a 90-day breakdown of what you did in the last 90 days. And I, I wouldn't know what to tell them. I'm so busy. I know that I was at Sue's house, working over there and making sure that she had everything she needed. You know what I mean? And so that's something that I absolutely had to change, for the purpose of creating value and showing the value of my business so that if I want to sell, if I want to get involved in an acquisition deal, I have the ability to do that. It also just gives you options. So it's a necessity.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, you didn't know those certain things or those metrics, and it's almost
Yeah.
like, how can you know all of that and give that your, I don't want to say your 100% because you're focusing on so many things, but how can you know all of this while still doing all of these other jobs? You're only one person, you're only human, you can't spread yourself that thin pretty much. And with business, why do you think that growth sometimes, or even maybe oftentimes, tends to stall after a business becomes successful, but not beforehand?
Oh, this is a really great question. But I think at some point in time, success can become it can create comfort. I've definitely experienced this where you just, oh my goodness, you've been hustling, 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 and then you get to a state where it's like, oh my goodness, things are kind of calm. I feel like I can breathe, and you just kind of you take your foot off the gas, I feel like. And I think that this can delay your upgrade, if you will. Um and I just think that you have to keep going regardless, but you also need to put systems in place. And I think systems can always be revised and reviewed, and I think that we should, do that as often as possible so that we don't get comfortable and thus for get become stagnant.
Hmm. Absolutely. And we kind of touched on this, but in this shift and in this change, it's emotional. It can definitely be challenging in so many
For
ways. But
sure.
what's the emotional challenge of this shift overall, especially in your um industry, right? Especially in your industry, for caregivers and for service founders who are so used to and so accustomed to being needed in so many different ways.
Yes, for sure. I think caregivers can equate value with usefulness. I am definitely a person just in how I grew up. Um, the ability to be useful to me is like a skill. You know what I mean? Like, be useful no matter what. It's just my mother to this day, like, we can't get that woman to sit down half the time. So I grew up with that. A lot of people grew up with very hardworking, parents. And so you feel like you have to always be doing something. You have to be being involved. And if you're not, then you're abandoning your team. And we never, as founders or CEOs, want to feel like we're abandoning anybody. I definitely don't want to feel that way. But leadership is elevation. You have to be a leader, and leaders have to have that mental space and focus to be leaders. So leadership and elevation and delegation is not abandonment. So we have to really um, force ourselves to learn that delegating is not abandoning. And when you step away, it's really interesting how you can watch other leaders rise to the occasion. Because when you're there, you can sometimes stagnate your team's growth from being the leaders that they need to be. So when I learned that, and then I can step back now, and there's like a wow factor for me for some of the people on the team that really stepped up to the plate that I never thought would step up in ways, to the point that they are just so reliable. They're like my rock. So you have to give people that ability to become who they need to be in your organization.
I love that. And like you said, that takes trust on your part too, and allowing them to step into that space and that elevated role and really showing you who they are for you and for your company, and really stepping into that role and having that in yourself to really look back and think, I made the right decision. And sometimes I'm sure, we talked about this in previous episodes about how hiring is so important, and there's, you sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you get great people. So just really knowing that you chose the right people to be able to step into those roles too. And I think also You said something I wanted to comment. Oh, I think it's funny that you said the beginning of that answer you mentioned how you spoke about your mom and how she can't sit down because right before we started rolling, I was just like, Crystal, you really just can't sit down. So
Right. Yeah, you did say that. Yeah, you did.
you're always
It's in different ways, but yes, my mother is a busybody. So we have to call her, me and my sister call her together sometimes on the phone, like, um, sit down, take a nap. And she's like, there's so much to do.
yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah. So I
I
definitely get that from her.
for sure. And also when you made your own CEO shift, right? You've
hmm
shifted at this point, right? So
hmm
what was the hardest thing for you to stop doing personally?
Uh, putting out fires. So, like, me and my sister, who's the operations manager for my organization, we speak daily, like multiple times a day. And when she calls me, I assume there's a fire. So I generally answer the phone like, oh my gosh, where's the fire? Like that's how we talk. You think we were like truck drivers or something? I don't know. Like where's like like we're like a dispatch, unit. Like where's the fire? That is literally how we speak. And then at the end of the day, when we have navigated through our day, we would say, okay, I think all fires are put out. Like, when I tell you we speak that, we really do. We were speaking that way, and so I had that really equates to me being a fixer or feeling like I have to be the fixer for everything. All these different, homes that we're managing and these individuals we manage. And I think that I have to be involved in every, area. So I really had to, like I said, I had to learn to step away and, and stop stalling the leadership of not only myself, but other individuals in the organization. And again, just to say it again, when I did that, so many leaders rised and said, I can handle this. And now, some of my managers, they'll tell me like, listen, go to Vegas, enjoy yourself. We got this. And, that is such a wonderful feeling. It really is.
Absolutely. It gets like you can feel like you could breathe almost probably.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it gives you your quality of life back where you can do things for yourself. And we've talked about that in season
sure.
one about burnout,
Absolutely.
having to take care of yourself.
Yes. I mean, and I love the spa. I would have never, I'm sorry, but I love the spa. And initially I feel really guilty about that. Like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go to the spa and I have workers working, but like, I'm sorry. I like the spa and I got to fit it in there sometimes because that's my self care.
Right, exactly. We spoke a lot about that, about self-care and don't apologize for liking the spa. Everybody likes the spa.
Right, right. But I'm just saying initially for a long time when I first, stepped into this position, I had guilt based around just going and doing something for myself, and I felt
Absolutely.
guilty. I
Yeah.
don't now. I don't feel guilty.
But
And I encourage my workers to go get some self care, whatever that means for you, because it means something, different for everyone. It's not
abs-
always a spa for all of us.
it's true for
It's
sure.
my favorite place, but doesn't mean it's everybody's favorite place.
Right. I think the other one was listening to Beyonce in the car, if I remember from like episode.
Yes, I do like listening to B. But I like to go somewhere by myself. I spend a lot of time alone because I think, uh, as a CEO or founder, there is a lot of work based around you spending time alone to think. To think. When I study successful people, they're like, no, I make time to go somewhere by myself and think so that you can really, just gain perspective and step outside of, the outside of yourself, outside of the business. And then you get, all this new insight. So I have to do that. And if the spa helps, okay.
Absolutely. What changes when a founder starts making decisions as a CEO instead of as a technician or a caregiver or someone just super, super hands on in a day to day?
I think then the decisions stop being from a place of emotion and they come from a place of structure, and they become more strategic. And your boundaries start to become more firm because you know the need for boundaries. And also you will see that your confidence will increase because the decisions are repeatable and not reactive. So definitely.
Absolutely. I like that repeatable, not reactive. Oh, there's the crystal saying of the day. I know there was gonna be one in there. But it makes sense too because that's how you build that, being able to have a repetitive flow
Yes,
of things.
absolutely. Just building that structure. Like I said, I study a lot of successful people from all different industries, and that's the number one thing you hear over and over. You need to create structure, and you need to maintain some level of discipline and focus. Because we get unfocused. I get unfocused at times too, and I gotta find it. There's like a for me, there's a spiritual state involved in focus because to me that's like the moment where, and I call it for myself. I didn't learn this from anyone. It's just what I say that I say as far as me. You're almost in a God state because you're operating in that place where you got those visions that you got, that whatever that keep you up at night, that thing, that the reason you're doing what you're doing, and you have to be able to focus in order to really get there. So I try to make sure. That's why
Mhm.
I spend time with myself, pen and paper.
Absolutely, and that's important. I think that everyone should do that in so many different aspects. I think it's just good for you to have that
Period.
reflection.
Yeah, I think it's why I've gotten back into working out. It
Mhm.
kind of helps with it. You're on a treadmill and you wanna get off like 5 minutes ago, but it's like, okay,
Mhm. No, for sure.
get
And
through it.
I think and we've, talked about this about even now we mentioned it, like stepping back it is hard and it's emotional and it's a challenge in itself because it's your baby, right? Your business is your baby.
Yeah.
How do you help your clients understand that stepping back does not mean losing control? It actually means that you're building something better and stronger.
Well, because I remind them that control is in consistency. It's in the small daily steps that you do over and over again. It's the boring part, if you will. Honestly, it's not in your presence. Um, and systems provide the visibility without micromanaging anyone. And then, to me, your peace it becomes the proof. You start to become at peace, and that's like your body saying, okay, you know things are finally starting to get to stable ground, and I don't have to be here present physically and burned out in order for that to happen. I can just take those small daily steps, remain disciplined, and then you get there.
Absolutely. And you said something that just reminded me of a similar conversation I had on another podcast that I host, Midlife Unleashed. And you said something very similar to something Doug, the host of that show, said about it being boring. So, and that topic was about longevity and building strength over time, essentially, in your midlife. And he quoted something along the lines of longevity and how to build it. And it's boring, but it's something that builds something over time
Yes,
that is strong and it is something that can be repeated. And it's like end game versus right
yes.
now. It's the long haul. So
And
I
then
think,
it starts to operate without you having to be there, even if you've stepped away. Like it keeps happening. regardless. It keeps going. But it's boring, and it's not glamorous, and no one's clapping for you, and no one's validating your decisions. It can feel lonely, because I think this is definitely that's a journey, a solo journey.
Hmm.
A lot of times, you have your journeys with your team, that you're working together, but then you have, especially as a CEO and a founder, that there are certain things that you are going to go through alone, and you have to stay the course.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I know there's so many people listening right now, most even in particularly maybe women. What would you say to women listening now who know that they are exhausted, knows the business depends too much on her, but is afraid to really let go and is having a hard time stepping in to this new role or this?
So I would say, if you feel like you're failing, you're likely evolving. Because on the other side of that feeling of failure is success. It really, to me, every time I've had those moments in life, right there, I was on the brink of, a complete transformation. And you just have to keep on moving, as I always say. And I think exhaustion is it's your body signaling you that it's time to lead in a different way. You can't keep doing things the same way, that you're doing things. And letting go is definitely not quitting. Letting go of those uh, things that are really stagnating you, such as emotions, people, places, just you have to let go of some of those old habits, in order to be your best self. So I think it means ultimately that you're graduating.
I like that, graduating. It makes sense. It's just that next step. The same way I feel like things were scary and unsure in the beginning, and you got through that and learned that, and now it's the new challenge, right? Because you said it's you evolving, it's your business evolving.
Absolutely. Both you and your business evolving and graduating to the next level.
Exactly. Well, I think that this was such an informative episode. I'm so excited. Season 2, it's the first of the season. There's a lot more good conversations to be had, and this episode in particular, I really think it wasn't about doing less. It was about leading differently. And just because
Absolutely.
that only, a business only works when you're exhausted isn't scalable. And it's more than that,
Absolutely.
not sustainable, right? So
Absolutely. Yes.
that's,
Oh,
mhm, yeah.
yeah. It's, as always, it's been so great talking to you. And I definitely, the, uh, the other podcaster that you mentioned, because I know we've talked about his show, like I can't wait to either be a guest on his show, or have him be a guest on mine. Please follow us on www.caretoceo.com. And if you are interested in booking me as a mentor, you can do so at www.csmithco.us.
As Crystal shared today, stepping into the CEO role is how you build a repeatable, scalable business engine, one that runs with systems, strategy, and soul. So if today's conversation made you realize that you're really ready for that shift, or even if you're just really thinking about that shift, Crystal's mentorship and resources are designed for founders exactly at that stage. So like she said, go to caretoceo.com and the mentorship website again, and we will link both in the bottom of the show notes. And I can't wait for the next episode. It's always amazing speaking
Yes.
to Crystal. And
Until
for,
next time. Yes. Like and subscribe.
yes, absolutely, like, subscribe, follow, and we will see you in the next episode.